Work on a prisoner through having worked on Danger Man, of course, you know, which meant, as you probably know, to work on any of Pat's things you had to prove yourself. So I was quite pleased that having worked on Danger Man, he asked me to go on the prisoner. That didn't mean you were very close to Pat, it just meant you accepted that you'd do your job.
Roy's job on The Prisoner was to take all the publicity photographs that would be used to publicise the series. He explains the range of stills that would be taken during the course of a production like The Prisoner.
Well, of course, the first thing is to provide stills material for the press. And Pat, of course, was not the sort of man to pose for stills. In fact, it was a condition when I went on The Prisoner that I should not ask for any still photographs whatsoever, and do it all in a photojournalistic manner with 35mm cameras, and never to ask him to pose for a still. So all the portraits I've got of Pat are shot on the sly, but as he got to accept me more and more, in fact he knew I was doing it, and in fact he cooperated doing it, but that was all right, that pleased him. He didn't like the idea of posing for photographs at all. Then of course you've got publicity photographs, which means the actual publicity photographs of the sequence being shot. Not a lot of that really, but and of course then you have to take photographs for the art department, because having shot in Port Merion we went back to MGM and did a lot of close-ups on reconstructed sets. So there's a vast sort of series of still photographs, which is not very interesting, but from which you could actually reconstruct any part of Port Merion. Then of course you had portraits of the leading artists, which again were shot on the set, just off the cuff on 35mm cameras. So really what happened in effect was my job became rather more like a photojournalist, doing a story of the making of the film. Pat never would pose for stills, but on one occasion he had to, because we wanted a series of photographs apparently taken in his own flat by a spy camera, which was set all over the flat. And the electronic flashes I used in those days took between 3 to 4 seconds between shots. If you fired before that time, after the first shot, then the flash wouldn't go off. And Pat deliberately set up the different angles and shots that he'd do so quickly that the flash wouldn't keep up with him. So he'd say, right, one of me looking in the mirror, right, one of me picking up my clothes, right. And always it was about within 3 seconds he'd change from one setup to another, and each time the flash wouldn't go off. And he said, this is bloody slow, this thing of yours, can't you get something faster? But that was Pat. He always had to lead and be ahead. And I must say it was quite an effort to be ahead of an electronic flash at 3 seconds per time.
Roy Gough and Beryl Booth were the only married couple to work on The Prisoner's crew, although Beryl retained her maiden name for professional purposes. Roy recalls how his wife came to join the unit.
Yes, well, as you know, Pat is not exactly a woman hater, but he did detest any woman who made eyes at him or in any way tried to flirt with him. He was very strict on that. And in fact, 1 or 2 actresses I know who tried that were very quickly slapped down. So it wasn't good. So he wasn't really very happy with an attractive young woman. But he did know my wife was a continuity girl, and he knew that if my wife was with me, he would then be free from that sort of attention. Although with some wives in the business, I'm not so sure he was right, but still. That's how it came about that Beryl came to work with me. And in time she was accepted as very professional, because she had a very good reputation in the industry. And so he was quite happy with that setup. I remember staggering up the hill at the end of the day with my equipment, and one day he came up to me and said, Roy, your wife, which worried me no end. I thought, well, this has gone wrong. And he said, congratulations, she knows her job, and walked away without a smile, typical Pat manner, but that meant everything was all right.
Yes.